I try to avoid idle chatter, but I'm not really sure that I understand the meaning of it. Um, I'm trying to resolve issues with um, people's blind spots in whether or not I'm dealing with persistent blind spots. Ignorance is a problem. Ignorance is a fault to which you confess in the Buddhist teachings. And but it's sometimes considered a job skill to have ignorance, to allow other people to decide what you need to know. And this can lead to things that you're karmically responsible for, in terms of people being deprived of, people's impermanence being increased, such as they're being deprived of services that I sometimes talk about the seals of office being binding moments when you take oaths, are when you have an authority to take money from someone, especially when you're not a kingdom, and you say that you're taking the money as a collection for the collective, for the purpose of using it in a variety of different ways that won't be influenced by a variety of different factors, that this has to be true. Or there are individuals and groups that will be held karmically responsible. It's not necessarily that what they've promised is agreeable to the Buddhas and stuff, but when you make a promise, you are susceptible to being held accountable for lying, which is something that you're not supposed to do. So when you lie, there are consequences. So if your job is to tell a bunch of lies, you are not absolved of this automatically. You have to do things to mitigate. There are people that do that. There are monks, lamas that routinely have to interact with women, for example, that are not relatives, that they don't just go, oh, well, it's just part of the job. They'll do prostrations for that. They'll do all kinds of different things in order to maintain their mental stability, their guidance stability, and stuff like that. It's not that they just go, oh, well, we've changed the rules. They don't change the rules. The rules include ways to overcome what you've done, and that you need to apply these antidotes in order to be able to continue in circumstances that we don't control. Now, this is where, being content with your own ignorance, saying, well, we don't get, ignorance is the cause of karma, right? So we don't get to say that I just didn't know, I didn't understand. You have to learn to overcome that impulse. In American culture, a lot of times, we get to say that we didn't know, we didn't understand. In Japanese culture, you don't, right? Say, I didn't know, I didn't understand. You just, say as many apologies as you possibly can and beg forgiveness and stuff like that. And maybe you're spared, maybe you're not. But your last words are being submissive in hierarchy. Or it has to do with, because of the hierarchy in Japan, it's usually, they can't just kill everybody that screws up. It's the decision where you're going to spend the rest of your life working because of the way that you screwed up. And so when you're talking to people later, how did you end up in this job? Well, I was ignorant of this, and I did this thing and the other thing. And said, oh, yeah, I knew a guy who did that, but he ended up somewhere else. And so these are the basis for conversation, meaningful conversation. So I don't understand what makes good copy and what doesn't make good copy. Sometimes things really take off and sometimes they don't. And so I'm trying to increase the amount that's good, pushing the things that I think are important. I'm not sure why people are interested in different things, but I don't really have anybody just to sit around and chat with, you know what I mean? And basically because I have not supported those relationships. I wander off and read, I'm not available to them, and I don't really reciprocate very well. Now, maybe if I learned to be a better listener, I would have more people to listen to me. Um, but there's a lot of people out there also that make structured content that I spend my time listening to. But I also spend a lot of time sitting around going, I am alone. And sometimes I'm glad that I'm alone. Sometimes I'm in praise that I'm alone. Other times I'm like, you know, I kind of wish I had more relationships that I could spend time with. And that's one of the things, like my son and I'm working with focusing some of our feelings on that, because I have a tendency to just give up on things. That this is the things with women's hormones that are inescapable, and men's hormones that are inescapable, and the different phases of life. You know, we're only 13 years apart. So, and the different ways that men mature and the different ways that women mature. And there is a point at which men begin to slow down on their hormones as well. So, it'll be interesting to see how things develop in the world, with the world being a very busy place at the moment. And I feel like he's watching everything that I do. He has his own ideas in mind of what to do. But I also feel like that there are things that I can change. Like, we explore different ideas of things to do. And then I say, no matter what we do, most things will become stale. Some things can be refreshed when they become stale, and other things, it's like the practices and stuff like that. When they become a little bit stale, sometimes they could be changed, sometimes they could be augmented, and sometimes it's a problem with yourself, and you can find a way to refresh it really easily. When dancing becomes stale, it is not the same thing.